I'm gonna ask you a question I want you to keep in the back of your head this whole video. Why exactly do we have endings? Be it a book, game, film, show, album, anything capable of telling some kind of narrative eventually must make a decision on how it should end. But what does it mean to really end something? And not just end in the sense of stop existing, but to conclude in a proper manner. What exactly is it that separates a good ending from a bad ending? Are those even objective metrics that can be measured, or are they arbitrary standards? And if so, what does that say about the society that sets said standard? No point beating around the bush. Chainsaw Man Part 2, and with it the wider series as a whole, came to an end recently, and in a way that, to put it mildly, has left a lot of people feeling very unsatisfied, and to put it more accurately, has left almost everyone who has read it in a state of soul-crushing disappointment. Since the chapter dropped, my feed has been nothing but wall-to-wall man memes. No, not that man, this man. And if that doesn't give you a sense of the general sense of incredulity and mockery surrounding this ending, I don't know what will. By the way, I don't know why you're watching this video if you haven't read Chainsaw Man Part 2, but spoiler warning, might be a little too late for that, but just know that this video assumes you have read all of Chainsaw Man. When I heard that Chainsaw Man was ending, I took it upon myself to reread all of Part 2, binging all 134 chapters that were out up to that point in preparation for that final chapter. I'd long since gotten into the habit of letting chapters build up before binging them all at once, consuming them on a volume by volume basis, since I believed this was how the series, as its chapters got shorter and more frantic, would be best consumed. And I was right. Those opening chapters, especially the Justice Devil arc that kicks off the Academy saga, are among Fujimoto's best work, both as an artist and a writer. Asa, my glorious little femcel, is such a wonderfully fresh protagonist and a great addition to Chainsaw Man's female roster. And her chemistry with Denji brings so many interesting things out of the both of them. I know with the Reze film coming out, everyone is suddenly returning to that pairing, and I understand why, but I've always thought that Denji and Asa complement each other's characters more. Not to mention, Asa also brings Yoru with her, who is a whole lot of fun in her own right. But even past that, I found a lot to like, especially as the story begins taking an apocalyptic turn. Even as the scale of destruction grows more and more absurd, Fujimoto always makes time to keep focus on the characters as they progress and struggle with their own and each other's emotions and insecurities. You have Asa, unable to believe that she deserves to want anything in her own right, her desires and shame mixing into this ungodly cocktail of emotion she's just drowning in. You have Yoru, who is the cause of a lot of Asa's distress and in fact becomes the main antagonist for a bit as she seeks to bring about an immortal war, but also ends up being influenced by Asa's own feelings and developing emotional complexity she, as a bloodthirsty, simple devil, is unequipped to deal with, leading to things such as I like to call it, the technical three-way hand job, which I made a whole video about on my second channel, go see it here. And of course there's Denji, who after achieving the normalcy that he spent all of part 1 struggling to achieve a semblance of, still chasing a nebulous need for more, which tracks with the revelations he had over the course of the public safety saga.
Oh my god, the ladies really love me. They totally love me.
Pipe down, will ya?
The truth is, the real truth is, I'm tired of eating stuff like toast with jam for breakfast. What I really want is to eat steak for breakfast every morning. I know I shouldn't. I know it's terrible, but it's the same when it comes to girls too. Deep down, I want 10 girlfriends. I want to have tons of sex. That's why I want to be Chainsaw Man.
Eventually, he comes to realize that what he wants is to have the best of both worlds, both the normal, mundane, beautiful domesticity, and the rush, the thrill, and the adoration of being Chainsaw Man. In other words, the status quo that he more or less had when he was part of the Hayakawa family with Aki and power, which was given to him by Makima for the sole purpose of ripping away from him. And throughout all of part 2, he is constantly told, no Denji, to have one is to lose the other. This is the way the world works. Deal with it. Whenever he tries to hold one close, the other drifts away, and when he reaches out to grab it, he loses what he was already holding. And seeing all that struggle and indecision and loss culminate in him deciding, fuck it, if the world is going to force me to choose, I'm gonna make one where I don't have to, because I deserve to be happy, and so do you, Asa, is so fucking cathartic and great and just everything I love about Chainsaw Man. Now, reading the entire series front to back like this does accentuate certain problems, the deterioration of the art as Fujimoto presumably becomes more and more burdened by the grind of the weekly Shonen Jump sweatshop, Asa gradually becoming less and less of an active player as both Denji and Yoru start eating up a lot of her spotlight, and the pacing getting somewhat uneven towards the back half of the series. But for the most part, I found myself actually kind of surprised at how cohesive and planned the story all felt. Right up until this moment. Immediately after this panel, everything changes. Right after getting killed by the rampaging bug and pest devils, Denji awakes to find Pochita, who brings up Denji's dissatisfaction with his life, no matter what dreams he attains, that he's far happier struggling for his life in poverty or locked in combat with devils, or, as he puts it,
turns out you had the crappiest but best kind of brain, one that can only find heaven when you're in hell.
Pochita devours himself, creating a world without Chainsaw Man, sending Denji back to when he was working for the mob as a devil hunter. And when they betray him for the zombie devil, it isn't Pochita who comes to his rescue, but power. The two of them soon after being recruited into public safety by Nayuta? During a mission to a school, Denji meets Asa, who he stops from crushing Bucky, which inadvertently set her on a collision course with him, and we get the infamous exchange.
Thank you, Chainsaw Man.
Chainsaw Man?
Because, you were fighting with a chainsaw?
Oh, yeah.
And then it just kinda ends. So what the fuck happened here? Okay, after sitting with the ending a bit, I think the two main issues with these final two chapters is how ridiculously abrupt it all is, and Pochita essentially acting as a deus ex machina who just comes in and solves everything. A lot of what it talks about, Denji's dissatisfaction with mundane pleasures, his adrenaline addiction, his fixation on goals like sex in place of real emotional fulfillment, are themes and ideas that the story has been exploring and playing with this entire time. The problem is that the story was still in that process. I mean, not in the middle of it, I'll give it that, but it felt like there was at least one big, massive fight that would lead us into the conclusion. Most were in fact expecting part 2 to end with a part 3 announcement, since we could tell that while we were building to some kind of climax, there were still a lot of lingering threads left unresolved. Only we were wrong, they could be resolved, just in the most unsatisfying way possible, which leads us to that second problem. Having Pochita just drop in, exposit all of Denji's character flaws to him, and then resolve all outstanding issues by just eating himself out of existence is not only unsatisfying because it's a random Deus Ex Machina moment, but also because it robs all the other characters, namely Asa, Denji, and Yoru, of any of their agency in overcoming their issues. Just as they were finding their resolve, just as they were reaching an equilibrium, and just as they were about to fight for their best possible world, Pochita just comes in and goes, "Nah, this is bad actually, keep dreaming, peace." And then just ends the series right then and there, almost like he'd gotten bored with it. Sitting there on that final page, having just binged over 130 chapters in 24 hours, I had a lot of conflicting feelings. Overall, I still loved the experience, and like I said, rereading all of part 2 put a lot of it into perspective for me, but I just wasn't sure about that ending. What happened here? Was there something I just wasn't getting? Had Fujimoto pulled a fast one on us and after a few weeks of sitting on it, we'd realise his genius? Or had he just ended the series because he was tired and didn't want to draw anymore? There have been situations in the past where I've initially been mixed on an ending only for it to click after allowing myself the time to dwell on it, but could that really be the case here? And so, like an apocalyptic zealot trying desperately to rationalize their obviously fake teachings, I turned to the previous serialized manga that Fujimoto had written before Chainsaw Man, in the hopes of uncovering some aspect of his process that would perhaps aid me in understanding what had just happened. To put it simply, I felt bad. So I reread Fire Punch. Interlude. So, it's kind of been a shitty year, not gonna lie. Even putting aside the myriad geriatric dictators and evil Bond villain CEOs trying to kill us for money and pride. Earlier this year, I put out what I consider to be one of my best videos ever, an anti-fascist reading of the game Seiko Giantess Dating Sim, which sounds insane. Don't worry, it is. But I put a lot of work into it. It was super well received and was on track to be my best performing video of the year so far, until it got age restricted. The bad thing about YouTube age restricting something is that you don't even get a detailed report telling you what is wrong with the video, so you can't even just edit out a specific part and appeal it without a lot of guesswork, which I did, only for that appeal to get rejected after 2 seconds by some fucking bot, meaning I had to re-upload the stupid thing. And it sucks, not just because I'm losing a well-performing video, but one that I put a lot of time in and really invested a lot in emotionally as well. So seeing it get taken out like that, it hurt. I'm not gonna lie, it hurt. So if you've enjoyed this video and want to help me make more, the most important thing you can do is go and watch videos like that one, as well as like, comment and share them. Beyond that, you can also do stuff like buy and stream my music on Bandcamp or whatever streaming service you use, as well as check out Kingscreek, a horror podcast that I produce and write with my friend Thomas S. Dennis, who you heard earlier in this video begging for sex. We're hard at work on season 2 right now. You've actually been hearing a lot of the OST for it this video already, so if a Gravity Falls Twin Peaks style adventure in the vein of the Magnus Archive sounds up your alley, check it out here on YouTube or again your streaming service of choice. And lastly, a big thank you to those of you who are already supporting me, especially my patrons, and in particular Michael Coolwood, El Begante, Fox, Josh with parentheses, and Virgil. Pledging to my Patreon gets you stuff like early access to videos and music, behind the scenes updates and credits in said videos. There's also a Ko-fi if you want to just like chuck some change my way one time, but yeah. enough of that. Enough begging. Let's get in a fire punch, shall we? Millennia into the future, the Earth is now in the throes of another ice age. Far from being natural, however, this ice age was induced by an exceptionally powerful being known as the Ice Witch. The Ice Witch is a blessed, a human being with a kind of extraordinary power, and through her machinations is slowly driving humanity to extinction. The story begins with 15-year-old Agni and his adoring younger sister Luna, the only young people in a dying village of elderly. Agni and Luna are both blessed with regeneration, but the former's is far superior. Thus, in order to feed the village, Agni frequently has his sister chop off his own limbs with an axe multiple times a day, which they then give to the others as food. She makes soup out of it. Their life in the village isn't easy, but it is, for the time being at least, stable. And every night, the two go to bed, Agni promising to show his sister the world of warmth she never saw. All of that is ripped away when a group of soldiers from Behemdorg, a quasi-ecclesiastical, degenerate city-state, arrive, led by a blessed named Doma, in order to steal supplies to help fuel Behemdorg's conflicts. Initially pleased to find a rare young man he can recruit, Doma is disgusted to learn of the village's cannibalism, burning it and all of its inhabitants to the ground with his blessing, the ability to produce flames that never go out until their fuel has perished. Most of the villagers quickly die, but due to their blessing, Agni and Luna fare, well, it doesn't feel right to say better. Due to their regeneration, their pain is only prolonged as their flesh constantly heals itself only to burn up once more. As Luna burns, her regeneration eventually failing her, Agni realizes that by consciously negating his regeneration, the flames will eventually consume him too. He can allow himself to die. He and his sister can leave this agony behind for the sweet release of death. They could see their parents again. He could finally show her the river, the flowers, cheese, cows, and...
Brother, live.
You may bear all other manner of pain and suffering, but always resist death.
For years, Agni burns, the pain all-consuming, relief now a long-forgotten memory. In time, however, his mind adapts to the pain, becomes used to it. After 3 years, he pushes himself to his feet, staggering and spitting boiling blood. After 5 years, he's adapted enough to move his body freely. After 8 years, he can control his regeneration enough to push the flames away from his head. He can once again breathe. He can once again fight. And so, with flame and agony tinting his vision red, Agni heads to Behemdorg with a single objective: find Doma and make him pay. It's been close to 4 years since I first read Fire Punch. I can still remember staying up late reading it on my laptop in my dorm at uni, and even now I can still remember how visceral and overwhelming it felt to read. And yeah, part of that was due to the content. This is a series that starts with a young girl chopping her big brother's arm off to eat before asking him to put a baby in her, and it only gets more from that point on. But the thing about Fire Punch that really blew my mind, that really changed how I think about stories, was its structure and pacing. You know how I talked about the premise about Agni heading to this big fascist city to kill the evil fire wizard and avenge his sister? Well, I call that the premise and not the story or synopsis because by the midpoint of the story, most of what I just described is irrelevant. Okay, that might not be the right word to use. Everything that happens in the story, no matter how brief, has an effect, trust me. But when I say brief, I mean it. The pacing of Fire Punch is truly something to behold. In a series of 83 chapters, Behemdorg is completely destroyed after only 21. The Ice Witch is back to back, confirmed to be not real, real, and then not real again, and Doma, the source of Agni's agony and the object of his revenge, exits the story after chapter 45, almost the exact midpoint. Seemingly major characters will be introduced and then killed off almost immediately, and those that don't die often disappear for dozens and dozens and dozens of chapters, only returning when you and even the other characters are all but guaranteed to have forgotten about them. While this does make for a reading experience that could be charitably described as disorienting, it also allows for the series to do and say a lot of things as it continues to string out Agni's suffering in increasingly horrifying ways. Suffering and revenge, about how those two things can give you the strength to take one more step, while also making you question why you even bother. Education, how it can reform even the most vile and despicable of people, and how a lack of it causes people to grow hateful and ignorant, corrupting even the most innocent and harmless. Identity, and the struggle to figure out how one sees themselves as they deal with the weight of other people's perception of them. Film, about media in general, how the stories around us can inspire great personal metamorphosis, leading us to the people we were always meant to be. There's so much here that we could talk about, that I want to talk about. Parts of this video were lifted straight from an unfinished script that I wrote in a mad haze back when I first read Fire Punch. But for the purposes of this video, I want to talk about the thing that stood out to me the most about this reread. And that is that Fire Punch, as a story, is about endings. And to show you what I mean, I wanted to talk about an exchange that occurs around halfway through the story. Judah, one of the former leaders of Behemdorg and a suicidal immortal regenerator like Agni, awakes to find herself in the custody of the Ice Witch, who reveals her true name to be Sulya, and confirms the legend of the Ice Witch is nothing more than a myth, having only introduced herself as such to Agni to give him a reason to keep going. Sulya reveals her true nature to Judah, that she is another immortal just like her, who came from a time before the Ice Age and wants to undo it by turning Judah into a giant tree, whose roots will spread throughout the earth and beyond into deep space, consuming all known life in the universe and using it as fuel to heat up the world, at which point Sulya will birth and guide a new humanity. And her reason for doing all this millennia-spanning plan that will result in the deaths of countless and the infinite suffering of Judah, is actually far simpler than wanting to save humanity in and of itself.
You asked how I can live in this world, and that's because I have something that fuels me. It's a fuel that will keep me going for the rest of my life. And that's because the last Star Wars film ends on a cliffhanger. I don't care if it takes tens of thousands of years. I'm going to raise culture to the exact same level as they were when they made Star Wars, so I can watch the next movie in the franchise. All the structure is necessary in order to make that possible.
The need for narrative satisfaction and closure is one that drives nearly every single character in some form or fashion. Sometimes it's just straight up stated as a core part of their motivation, other times a more subtle implication. But either way, people in Fire Punch will put themselves and everyone around through absolute hell just to get to the perfect ideal ending they think they need, twisting and pushing conflicts far beyond their natural endpoint for no other reason than the possibility of a more satisfying conclusion, even if objectively walking away and just letting it end is the better outcome. Togata is the most literal embodiment of this, as a massive, obsessive film buff hoping to essentially play out his own blockbuster. He casts Agni in the lead role, carefully curating his look and having him play out numerous story beats in order to produce the most narratively fulfilling plot he can think of. This results in him doing things like protesting when Agni breaks script to save a bunch of slaves, encouraging a bunch of soldiers to continue assaulting a child to better characterize them as villains, and getting confused why Agni tries to abandon his revenge after finding Doma. Even as he lies dying and burning to death after saving Agni from drowning, he spends his final moments trying to figure out what the most impactful last words are. Sulya is much the same, ultimately chasing a form of catharsis that they can only achieve through narrative, their millennia-long lifespan having deprived them of most other forms of stimulation. It's almost like there comes a point where, after living for so long and experiencing so much, you can't just lie down and end right there. It has to be worth it. It doesn't matter how painful and devastating the journey to get to that ending is. If it's satisfying, then that's all that matters, whether you're character, audience, or both. Which brings us to Agni and his quest for vengeance. After destroying Behemdorg and in the process accidentally becoming the founders of a new religion, don't worry about it, Agni and Togata learn from one of their latest converts where Doma fled. The two trek across the endless expanse of snow all day and night, Agni so he can finally complete his life's mission and avenge his sister, and Togata so he can film the whole thing. Eventually, they come to a house near a frozen lake, where Agni finally comes face to face with Doma. Just not the one he expected.
Please, forgive me. I know I've done unforgivable things. Things that could never be forgiven no matter what I do with the rest of my life, but I can't die. Please.
The Doma Agni meets on the frozen lake is quiet, world-weary, thoughtful and compassionate. One who speaks not of militant religiosity, but of education and mercy. He pokes at the conflicts deep in Agni's heart and relates to them, asking for his forgiveness less for his own sake and more so that he can continue to do good in the world to counteract his years of evil. And this is difficult for Agni to accept at first, because he kinda needs this at this point. His pain is so great, he wants nothing more than to die, and yet that same pain is also the thing driving him to keep living. What does he look like without it?
No matter how much I try to forget, one look at these flames causes my brain to scream out in pain, screaming at me to kill Doma. If I'm going to move on, then I need to accomplish something by coming here.
Killing Doma has been the only thing keeping him going for years at this point, and it's not exactly something he can just walk away from, right? But no. Agni stops and realizes that, regardless of what he might want, regardless of his own quest for catharsis, the best thing for the world, for Doma, for him, is to simply let Doma be. To let him continue doing good in his own corner of a dying world, while Agni does the same in his. And maybe he'll find something deeper than any momentary release or satisfaction. Peace.
Are you really okay with resolving your revenge this way?
If this were a movie, would the hero have killed Doma?
No, the hero wouldn't have killed him. Doma's such a miserable excuse for a man now. It wouldn't have been satisfying to the audience. Plus, the children would die as a result. If children had to die, the audience would despise the hero for it.
Oh, really? Then good. Because I'm the hero, aren't I?
A slave to catharsis, Agni returns and slaughters Doma and most of his wards, committing himself to a continued, prolonged and painful existence as Fire Punch that only grows more absurd and awful. He could have walked away, he could have let it go, he could have moved on and just let Doma fade out of his life. But he couldn't. He needed a better resolution than that. He needed more satisfaction than that. He needed a better ending than that. I want to go back to the question I started this video with. Why exactly do we have endings? That was an open question that, after reading the Chainsaw Man ending, I asked not just my friends and peers, but also my own audience. Thank you to all of you who responded. A lot of common themes popped up in your answers: closure, resolution, and a proper wrapping up of and a statement on a story's themes and character arcs. Some of the more interesting answers I got included stuff like to make way for a new beginning for something else, to allow the audience and the author to move on to other stuff, and even because we don't really get narrative endings in the real world where everything wraps up nicely and has some obvious meaning, here shit kinda just fucking happens and we just gotta deal with it. So it's nice to see that meaning and resolution in the media we consume. I mean, that's part of the reason people are drawn into pseudo-scientific conspiracy theories and cults and the like. An inability or unwillingness to accept that the world is largely governed by random chaos and stupid evil. One I thought was particularly interesting was from friend and Tomodachi Life addict Cybergrape UK, who said that endings exist to give context to the rest of the show up to that point, with different endings wildly changing how we might view a story in retrospect. Kyle the Scot had a poignant, if mildly ominous take that endings don't really have a point so much as they are an inevitability. All of these answers were very interesting and gave me a lot to think about, both in general and obviously in relation to Chainsaw Man, but none of them really felt like the answer for me. I don't know, I guess I was hoping for some new and novel perspective that would make things sit better for me. But then I reread Fire Punch, which is a story about how that kind of mentality, that obsession with having nothing less than a perfect, natural conclusion, is basically a fast track to a life of desperation, suffering, and madness. Instead of trying to accept and work with what's there, or even just going, yeah, I'm done, and walking away, Fire Punch's characters willingly drag themselves through lifetimes of pain spent running in circles, unable to move on and grow, even regressing as human beings because they are just that entranced by the idea of that perfect ending. If I had to answer the question of what an ending is after all of this, I'd say an ending is something to be taken or left. That is it. It is there, it exists, and we make of it what we will and what we want. For my own sake, I choose to take Chainsaw Man for what it is. I'm not gonna sit here and write some fix-it-fic bullshit. I'm not gonna dictate to you what I think the perfect Chainsaw Man ending would have looked like. I was there when the original Attack on Titan ending dropped. I know where that kind of salt leads you. Chainsaw Man is a series I have loved and will continue loving in its myriad forms, and it has a bad ending, and that is what it is. I will continue reflecting and dissecting and criticizing it, but I will never run from it. I owe myself and it that much at least.